So let's go ahead and get started. So like I mentioned, we're going to go through intro background, defining the role, some essentials that you guys can apply to your hackathon, and then plenty of time for Q&A. So quick intro on myself. And if at any point you guys have questions, like I said, just drop them in the chat. We're going to answer all of them. So some background on myself is I was an FIU student. I got my bachelor's. Excuse the barking, I have a dog. But I have a bachelor's of science in computer science. I graduated from FIU back in 2018, so 2 years ago. So a lot of folks who are planning and organizing the hackathon, I do know, I probably had class with a couple of you that are tuning in now. It hasn't been too long. And I was extremely, extremely involved in community. That's something that was really important to me. If you ask my family, I think they only saw me for like holidays. Although academics were really important to me, I thought being in such a minority serving school and city, and even the state, I really wanted to give back. I was very fortunate that I acknowledge that I can articulate myself really well, but there's so many talented students who maybe have language barriers or just opportunity barriers. And I wanted to do everything I could to give back and help make our community stronger. So what you see here on the right are some pictures of awesome opportunities I had to participate in hackathons. I even had the awesome experience of winning first place at one of the hackathons and many awards and other ones, but with teams, right? Like it was so great to see that a concept that maybe I thought up of and two other engineers helped me, come on board and build it. And we were just students. Like I call them engineers, but we're all just students at the time. And it's really amazing to see that project come to fruition and people recognize like your hard work. It's a really good feeling. And the prizes are lit. And then the second bit that I really cared about were more of the local groups. So things like ASI that does like resume building and really cares about your professional career, as well as like CS First. I think that's what it's still called. They went through a lot of iterations, but it's the one where you go teach kids in elementary school and middle school how to code. It's like scratch coding, but you're teaching them technical concepts, right? Which is kind of a necessity in most of the fields that you're going to be joining now. My sister is in like the spirits industry, and even she has to use software, and she calls me up to kind of show her around. So I think it's a really important, regardless of what industry you go to have some bare bone understanding of technology. So I really wanted to build that up in the Hispanic community. And then going into, like post-grad and industry, I want to say that I love FIU. So any opportunity I can to help FIU students or FIU organizations, I'm always available. I make time, even when I don't have time, to make sure that I'm doing my part in giving back to the community even now, especially now, because now I'm on the other side and I have different perspectives and different opportunities to help you all grow or get additional insight. So I did come back for last year's ShellHacks when it was in person, and let me just tell you, it was so much fun. I got to talk to a lot of you, go through like resume tips. I got to kind of see your experiences at ShellHacks and how it was different from mine or similar to mine. And, even judging the different projects, it was such a cool feeling to see some of the teams use the product that I had worked on. And I saw them using, features and functionality that I did everything from concept to production for. So it was really, really amazing seeing that you guys were leveraging something I built. And more so that I was able to build something that you guys could leverage. That was beautiful. So I do have some more career things to mention before we move on. And my headband is like not cooperating with me. But I am a program manager. So I know that the terminology can be a little confusing. So basically there is a product manager role, and at Microsoft, we simply call it the program manager. So it's essentially a technical product manager. And I'm a program manager for Azure Machine Learning, which is one of the Azure platforms that handles machine learning. And more specifically, I work on the AutoML service. So this is automated machine learning. And what automated machine learning is basically a way to use the word democratize, but I want to say it's like make machine learning more accessible to non-data scientist personas. So this includes analysts, people in finance sectors. This could be something we call citizen data scientists. So let's say you know a lot about machine learning. You understand what algorithms are. You understand training. You understand all of these concepts, but you're not a PhD. You're not a code first persona, we'll say. Like Coding is not where you came from. That's not your background, even though you understand technical concepts. So how do we still offer a platform where you can do machine learning training without all of that background? So that's really what Automated ML targets, even though a good portion of our users are, the classical data scientist. And in this role, I've had the awesome opportunity to do presentations to hundreds all the way up to like 4,000 people in an audience. This has been virtual, this has been on stage, and I get major stage fright. Even to this day, I do, but it pushes me outside of my comfort zone. So I think whatever job you're doing, strive to be challenged every single day. And you will get over stage fright if you go into product management. So let's quickly go into what is a product manager. So this is going to wildly differ depending on who you ask. I'm not saying it differs from company to company. It differs from team to team. I have sister teams, which are basically teams that work in AML, but maybe a different service or a different sector. And even their definition of their responsibilities will be different than mine. So what I tried to do here is kind of find the most common responsibilities and experiences that we all share. So I put them into like little bullets here that we can kind of consume, but it's the first is to develop product strategy. So this is essentially like, where do you see the product going, right? So this could be something like, I know that I want to build Azure Machine Learning to be more of a quality service. So before I was shipping out a lot of features really fast. Every 2 weeks we were shipping out a new feature. But maybe the quality of the product was a little degraded from how fast we were shipping things out. So at first we were trying to be a competitor. We were trying to get ourselves noticed. So we pushed out a lot. Now we want to be a quality service. So even though we might not have the newest, latest, shiny things, everything we build is very dependable. So we might take a step back and build that out. And then you also want to think about years in ahead. So 2-3 years out, where do you want your product to be? Do you want to, invest a lot in your research department so that you're building new things that no one else has seen? Or do you kind of want to go in a little bit more of a customer strategic point where you see, well, commonalities between the current customers we have and XYZ features will light up their workflows. So let's go ahead and invest in that. So there's different ways that you can choose to develop that product strategy depending on kind of the customer feedback or even the market. And you are in charge of developing what that strategy is for your feature or area. The second is developing the product roadmap. So the strategy helps influence what goes on your roadmap. Your roadmap is a lot more on an item level. So let's say I want to deliver a new UI, I want to deliver a new training experience or task, those kinds of things. You have to decide, one, scoping it, like how long will it take for dev work? How long will it take for planning? Do you need to go through a private preview where you only show it to X amount of customers, or do you need to ship it right away? So you kind of go through these kinds of steps. And the next two are kind of from a customer perspective, and they're my absolutely favorite parts of the whole process. The first is engaging with customers. So this depends, again, with what feature you're on. I'm personally on a very customer-facing feature. We are picked up by both Microsoft internal teams and large external companies. This spans across oil and gas. This spans across retail, food industries, you name it. I have customers all over the world, from Sweden to Asia, all over. And having those engagements is really great because you get instant feedback. You build something, they will tell you whether they love it or they don't. And it's harsh, but at the same time, it's really, really rewarding because you will know what they want. And you're not just building to build, you're building based off of actual feedback that you can get from customers. So it's really, really great. And the second one, just kind of to the same point, you kind of become that point of contact for the company. So not only do you get to work on just, let's say, automated machine learning, I work on the entire Azure platform, everything from like cognitive services to data, all over, because I need to make sure that my customer's workflow is successful from beginning to end. So there's like a lot more exposure. So you're not stuck in one place. So the next part that I wanted to cover was the Hackathon Essentials that I mentioned. So what can you take away from this session to be successful and kind of apply to your project? So the first thing is making sure that you're defining your objective. So what I mean by this is clearly stating what you're building and why. If you know what you're building, that's great. Usually you will start with why. So I want to do something that's going to make, teaching easier. Or I want to do something that's going to help with hurricanes or hurricane relief. Then you define your what, right? So what am I going to build for that? You always want to make sure that there's a what for your why and a why for your what. And the second part is defining your key success metrics. This is really, really great. And we'll click into each of these after, but they're going to help guide kind of what you should work on a more granular level. So, okay, I want to build an app, but there's so many points in that I can build, and my scope can grow so much so quickly. So making sure you prioritize based on metrics. And we'll talk about how to define metrics. And the last bit that I really want you guys to take away with you is pitching your product. So at the very end, people underestimate this a lot, but pitching your product basically can be the difference between bringing in stakeholders, or in your case, winning the hackathon, and potentially having someone walk away from a really great project simply because they don't really understand either the value prop or what you built. So it's really, really important to have a good strategy coming in. So hopefully I can give you guys some tips on that. So let's go ahead and get started with defining the objective. So kind of some don'ts is don't overcomplicate things. Like, I don't need a whole thesis. Even if you're doing a very in-depth machine learning, technical thing, I don't need a whole thesis as to why you're creating this. Give me the elevator pitch, or if you watch Mr. Wonderful, like the 90-second, tell me what it is, tell me why. Don't try to put so much glamour and glitz and oversell or technical sell. I don't need jargon. Just tell me what you're building, tell me why you're building it and why it's important. And be very, very careful for reaching assumptions. I've heard a lot of times where folks are like, everyone needs this. I'm like, well, what data do you have to back that up? You're in a hackathon. I really doubt everyone needs this, but it's okay to make some assumptions. I've noticed some trends, me as a student and hanging out with a lot of students, that a lot of us suffer with X. I've personally seen it. Okay, that's a safe assumption. You and your peers who are students happen to face some problem. Acceptable assumption. So what you do want to do is keep things very clear and concise. And I'll give you an example. We'll walk through something together, but be very clear and concise. Don't overfill just to fill in. And make sure that you base any objectives off customer workflows or data insight. So what I mean is kind of back to that example that I gave you guys. Like, me and my students or other students in my class kind of face this problem. So you're kind of doing this based off like what you've seen, data that you've observed from your sample. Obviously, it's a small sample size, but it's a project, it's fine. But usually you want to have a reason, a core or evidence as to why you're building what you're building. Otherwise, you might be building things that never get used. So we'll first click into a scenario, and then I'll show you guys how to define an objective. So this is the scenario of something I've built. It's going to get a tiny little technical, but just for a second, and then we'll pull back. So essentially what AutoML does is it lets you, or more specifically, what I work on is time series forecasting for automated machine learning. And what this does is it lets you bring in historic sales data. So this might be how pub subs are selling over the course of 2 years, right? So you give me 2 years of historical data for pub sub sales, and I'm going to predict out the next 3 months of sales. So you get an idea of how much inventory to have, how much chicken tenders should I cook, etc. And the next part is kind of from an analyst, so the back-end perspective, is your model is then deployed to the cloud. And then you can go ahead and create a REST endpoint or some kind of service that pulls the predictions from that model. So you pass in, well, I expect the weather to be like this, or I expect some external regressors to look like this. Tell me how much inventory I should get, or tell me how much of my product I expect to sell in the next 3 months. And what a lot of analysts will do, so the business side, is they'll graph those predictions and they'll create those pretty Power BI reports we see everywhere, right? So it's kind of a bunch of different personas that I mentioned there. I first mentioned data, so that comes from your data engineer. Then I mentioned the data scientist who's creating the modeling and training. Then I mentioned the developer, right, who's pulling that data into some kind of app, some kind of, dev tools there. And then finally, I mentioned an analyst, right, who's making these Power BI reports. So that's a lot of different folks that need different expertise to light this up. And ideally, what AutoML does is create one platform where it's really easy for maybe only 1 or 2 personas to interact. Even an analyst with a no-code click UI could train a model and then still go ahead and consume it. The problem is they'll still need to interact with that cloud REST endpoint kind of environment. So it would require code in order for them to get predictions. So something I noticed is we were losing a lot of our analyst persona, a lot of the folks who did not have that technical background. So let's quickly talk about that. So traditionally, automated ML originally targeted professional data scientists. And as so time series forecasting, the feature I work on, was only released about 1.5 years ago. So it's really new to the product. And we're now starting to target more of this financial sector, more of this analyst persona. So it's someone new, and having this code experience is not working for them. We noticed like a drop as soon as they were done finishing training the model. They're like, well, now what? I don't know how to do anything with this model. What I want are predictions. What I want are results. So what I really wanted to do was, how do I retain these customers, right? And how do I attract new customers? Because they might just see code and be like, I'm out, right? I'm not gonna use this. And our existing customers, we wanted to grow their usage. We wanted them to use it and keep using it even more because they found it easy. So let's talk about our objective. So my objective is to give users the ability to visualize forecast without coding. That's essentially what I want to do. Why do I want to do it? I'd mentioned before, to help with adoption and drive up usage. I want more people using my product, right? Ideally, when I'm done building this, I should also be able to give you some evidence to its effect. Is it working? Why is it working? Etc. Maybe I can say I brought in, a whole banking, I don't know what bank, but like any banking's entire analyst team onboarded to our feature because I shipped this. So that kind of success, that evidence is really cool too. So once we have our objective, the next thing to do is define key success metrics. And again, like I mentioned with the objective, you want to make sure that you have that defined for your own project. That one line or maybe 2 sentences, again, 90 seconds, elevator pitch style. And that's going to make you really successful when we get to the pitch portion. So defining key success metrics, first is you should know that you need to leverage your success metrics to prioritize your work. So let's say I wanted to create visualizations. What does that mean? So what I want to see is, if you guys have ever seen a forecast, I want to go ahead and, as soon as the model is done training, users can pass in the data that they want to predict on, and they'll see a pretty little forecast. They'll see their historic data and where the new data is. If that still isn't making sense to you, if you guys use Robinhood or any kind of stock trading, just imagine that, but just forecast of how your sales would be in the future or how your stocks would be in the future. So this is what I wanted to produce. Going that extra mile, what would be awesome is if users could click a button, download to CSV, and see the results in that formatting, kind of like an Excel table or something, where then they can still go and create those Power BI reports, but without the whole cloud REST endpoint dev portion of it. Now, thinking about, I have 24 hours or 36 hours in this hackathon. I have a lot of things to do. I need to create that table from scratch for whatever reason, and a lot of other information. Well, if my metric is to attract a new audience and grow my current usage, is that button really P0? Is it the most important thing to meet my success metrics? No, but it'll help. It'll definitely be one of those features that keeps people in, but not necessarily attracts new people or significantly improves the experience. Once they can visualize their forecast, they're pretty set. So metrics, what I was trying to get to, should drive what I prioritize. And then also make sure that your metrics are not purely, numeric, right? You want some qualitative information here. So when I go back and I survey my existing customers, and I go back and survey new customers that came to the product, are they satisfied? Am I actually lighting up their workflows? Is this making sense for them? And you guys can do this too. If you guys are building anything that has a user base around you guys, so developers, students, anything like that, you can easily go ahead and just ping a couple teams, maybe 5, 10 teams, and say, hey, do you have 3 to 5 minutes so that I can show you my product, or you guys can try to use it? And what you can do is get feedback from that. And hopefully it goes somewhat well. And during your demo, you can say that you surveyed, 10 different teams, and they said that they could imagine themselves or some of their peers using the feature that you built. And although that sample size is small, it's still a good indicator that you're building something useful or something that has impact. So there's different ways that you can get that information for the hackathon. So I kind of already talked about this, but these are the metrics that I would define for that forecast visual. So the first one is customer satisfaction, and that's qualitative. And then I want to increase the current base usage. So my current users should think, wow, this new UI with the forecast is great. I want to use this even more and get more of my team on board. And the second one is to attract new users. So I'm attracting that financial analyst persona to come use the product because they feel less intimidated by it. So those are kind of the metrics that I would focus on. So this is kind of what I already talked about, so I might just skim through it, but just make sure that you prioritize with those metrics in mind. Decide what you're going to build and what is probably under the cut line. And if you get to it, great, that's just a plus. But make sure that you get past your core things that you need to build that minimal viable product. The last part is pitching your product. So if you haven't been listening, this is the part where I would just maybe maybe tune back in. This is probably the thing that I see a lot of projects suffer through. I have judged a lot of hackathons, at least five plus hackathons, and I can say that this is probably the saddest part, where I saw a team work on a project and I saw how much hard work they put into it. I saw them like really sweat over something, but when they pitch it, it falls flat. And even though I knew what the project was from prior context, when I come in to judge it, it wasn't explained properly, right? Or it didn't give the effect of what it could do or the impact that it had. So it's really important that, I don't know, at least 30 minutes before you're going to demo, practice it, or at least write down some notes. Some people really like to wing it, but make sure that you get your bullets, the key things you want to drive home, have them written down. So that way, if you blank, whatever happens, you can just point at them. Worst case, just have something there. So the first one is emphasize your objective. So many people go in and they're like, I'm going to show you what I built. Can you summarize really quickly what you're going to show me and then show me? That would be great, So this is what I built, why I built it, and how it impacted whatever, right? Or how it can impact whatever audience. So do that before you jump in, right? Sometimes we get a little anxious and we just jump in. So the second part is using the metrics and customer feedback to show the need. So it'd be great to start out with, sometimes a lot of students struggle with studying, and this is a common problem that I face and my peers face. And so we built XYZ for it, right? So you're kind of using this kind of qualitative feedback, or you can even use numbers. If you can say, 75% of Americans face some issue, here's how we're solving it. Those are also cool. They're just catchy, right? And I think about it. Number 3 is the most important one. If you don't want to follow any of the other ones, number 3 is the one to remember. We will not remember your project. Truth. We will not remember your project if you just pull up VS Code and show us the code. That is not the way to sell a product. It's great. If I ask you, hey, how did you build something? Pull up the code, show me all your cool, show off, right? I want to see your technical ability. But at the beginning, that is not the right way to go about it. At the beginning, you want to tell me a story. You want to get me involved, whether you make it funny, something like I can resonate with, or you make it personable. You make it something that you've experienced and you walk me through how this is solving it. Because what I'm going to remember is your personality, the story that you sold me. And then I'm going to think, oh yeah, that product really did work and that story really makes sense. And now I understand the tech. And now I understand the objective and the metrics. So make sure that you make it something memorable and use a little cue. So in this case, I use pub subs because I love public subs. So maybe you'll just remember that story, right? So use something to kind of hook people in. And that's basically the essentials that you probably need. I'm more than happy to talk about other things in the product management lifestyle, but I just want to really quickly reiterate. So what we went over was defining your objective and making sure that that's clear and concise. We also talked about defining success metrics and then how to pitch your product. So I think if you guys can take some time and see how to incorporate these, if not in this hackathon, then maybe in a future one, I think you guys will see a little bit of improvement in your results. But that's really all I had to talk about. I think we still have 30 minutes left. So I wanted to leave a lot of time for discussion, just Q&A, keep it super interactive. So I'm gonna go ahead and open it up. I do see that there's some people in the moderation panel. So I am from Florida. Yeah, so I was born in, a little bit of background, I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. My parents are Hispanic. My dad is from the Dominican Republic and my mom is from Honduras. So I'm a little bit of a mutt. So I'm a little mixed. And then I moved to Seattle, Washington 2 years ago. So I've been here for 2 years. I'm so glad that I'm away from the humidity. So I love it. Yes, I never meet Hondurans. Please, this is great. But if you guys have questions also about moving to a new city, if you have questions about Seattle, being woman in tech, whatever, I can answer anything. It doesn't even have to be anything that I discussed. I just want to make sure that you guys have an outlet to ask questions to industry professionals. I think I held the same presentation at Panther Hacks, and I only had one person reach out personally. A lot of you added me on LinkedIn, but one of you sent me a message and was like, hey, you said that you might have connections to developers across the industry. Can you connect me to some? And I connected her to a developer at Apple. I connected her to a developer at Microsoft. I connected her to one at Google. Because you need to make use of your network, right? So make sure that you're creating meaningful relationships. And when someone offers to help you, when someone offers to say, hey, if you need something, come to me so that I can mentor you. Come to me so that I can hook you up with the right mentor. take advantage of it, right? This is probably a little bit too high, like, large scale for me to promise that I can introduce you to developers all over. But there's a lot of network within UP, if you guys are FIU students or know of FIU students. And I'm sure your schools also have great clubs. Talk to those people. Take those industry mentors. Just reach out to someone on LinkedIn and be like, hey, I noticed you're at Dream Company X. Do you think we could, talk virtually and have like virtual coffee and just talk about your job? They'll talk to you, and that's an amazing opportunity. So take advantage. More Seattle people, it just started raining, which is great. So what do you like the most about your job? And if you could change, improve anything, what would it be? So the part that I like the most about my job, going back to one of the earlier slides, is the customer engagements. That's by far my favorite because it's I like instant gratification. That's just something about me. So I love getting on a call with customers, pitching products, discussing what they need to light up their workflows, and getting really technical. So instead of having to use hypothetical, well, how would a customer use this? I actually spend, about an hour on a call where we write down what their data profile looks like, what accuracy they need to meet, who would be using the product, how we can get there. And then I pull in data scientists, I pull in developers, and we hash out. It's like a hackathon. Every time I talk to a customer, it's like a mini hackathon of us trying to get them on the product. If I could change anything about my role, that's a hard one. I would say one thing is, and maybe this is a Microsoft thing, is that we do tend to focus on really, really large external companies. So I'll be working with, I can't say any here, but really large names, like names that anyone would know. I think it would be cool if we had more resources to support more local companies or like startup companies. I feel like Microsoft right now is very targeted towards really large external accounts. So it'd be cool to work with people like non-for-profits, things like that. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy. Not too much to complain about. What was my first, sorry if I missed one, but what was your first job right after graduation? So I saw that you were trying to get on the panel. Sorry about that. I'll get to those in a second. But my first job right out of college was as a research intern. So I was a research intern on my last semester, and then I did a continued internship because I was going to go get my master's in computer science. So I was a research intern at the Institute of Human and Machine Cognition in northern Florida. The middle of Florida. Don't ask me about geography, I can't. But I did some NLP and machine learning work there. I hated the machine learning, ironically, and I wanted to go in to get my master's within the natural language processing space. So that was my first job. I was going to start full-time, and then I got the Microsoft offer, and I jumped ship. Of course, I'll answer all your questions if I see them. So what do you think is most difficult of dealing with customers? Yeah, that's a really great question. So I do have a lot of mentees. So I try to mentor people, and sometimes our mentorships will be short because I'm just not the right mentor for you. And I'm not going to waste your time. Never. I will go ahead and try to find you the right mentor. A lot of times people say, I'm curious about product management. And then I tell them, I show them my calendar. That's all I do. At least a customer call every day, sometimes at 8 a.m. because somebody is in Europe, sometimes at 7 p.m. because someone is in China. It's hard. It's really, really hard. So I would say the hardest part of dealing with customers for me is time schedules because we work internationally. For other people, it's the fact that you can't be mean, right? Like if a customer is rude to you, you have to think about it like you're providing a service to them. And if they're frustrated or they're showing frustration to you, that means you didn't develop the product well and you need to improve on that product. With very few exceptions, right? But it kind of goes with the customer's always right. And if you can't deal with that, it's a hard role. But there are some PMs who don't deal with customers. They're just like non-customer facing PMs and they thrive. They're like sassy and great, So just be aware of what position you're applying to or what role you're going to accept and how you interact with people. Scrolling through, bear with me, you guys. So how did you apply what you learned in the classroom to your internship and now your career? So this is a really, really good question. I like this question. So to give you guys some insight, my end goal is to be an educator. I want to be a professor in university more than anything in the world. However, it doesn't pay. It doesn't pay much. And the thing I kind of didn't love is that not all, but some of my professors didn't have the industry know-how. They didn't have the industry experience. They worked for a couple of years and then they went straight into education. And while I really respect them, I didn't get what I needed from them. So I really wanted to make sure that I experienced a lot of industry. I experienced a lot of projects before I go to teach, because I want to make sure that even if it's outdated, at least it's coming from real industry experience before I teach it. So that's kind of coming from my background. So in school, unfortunately, I can say that technically I learned a lot that helps me, right? Like as a PM, I'm still extremely technical. Like most of the specs I write are dev specs. So like if someone pulls up a Python code file, like I need to be able to read it and debug it and tell you what's right and wrong. I do need to do that because my customers do that. They pull up a sample notebook and they're like, it's broken. I can't always pull in a dev and tell them to fix it. I need to be able to fix it. So I still need to know how to read and debug code. I just don't have to write code. So that's where it stops. So definitely coding basics, data structures basics. If you guys have like system design classes, that's really great. So I think operating systems is the closest thing that I can think of. But operating system skills are really great. What else? Kind of lost my track on that question, but if I didn't answer something, come back. Oh, what I was going to say on that is most of what I learned that I was able to apply to my career came from outside the classroom. So this came from like UP workshops. Even though professors held a lot of them, it was the content that they talked about outside of class. That was actually really interesting. So note that. And then hackathons. Hackathons, by like hands down, that's where you learn all your material. Just telling you now. So I noticed you used program management and product management interchangeably. Would you say there are any differences? No differences. Okay, so the program manager is just Microsoft's terminology for product management. However, I have noticed now that I have friends working in different companies that the program manager role is a little bit more all-encompassing. So although I don't come from a designer background, I do create UI mocks, I do like UX reviews. Even though it's outside of my powerhouse, we have more responsibilities versus at other roles, product management is strictly defined to kind of the product roadmap and then building out those features. Whereas at Microsoft, it's a little more broad. We have a little bit more responsibility, which can be good or bad. Aside from taking leadership roles at work and school projects, what kind of experience does Microsoft look for when it comes to hiring product managers? This is a good one. I think leadership definitely helps, right? Because like I said, there might be roles where you have to talk in front of a lot of people, but here's the thing a lot of people underestimate, right? I'm 2 years into my career. 2 years into my career as a product management. And this is where software engineering and product management really start to split. So product management and software engineering, yeah. So really start to split is software engineers, you tend to work with maybe a principal, maybe a senior engineer in your team. When you're in product management, you might be leading senior engineers. And I'll tell you what I mean by that in a second. Leading senior engineers, leading data scientists with like quadruple the amount of experience than you have, like 15 plus years on you. And when I say leading, it doesn't mean you're their manager. I don't manage a person. No way. They have engineering managers. I manage the product. But I need to get into a room and with absolute conviction, I need to be able to tell them, we're working on this. This is the customer evidence. This is the research I did with competitive analysis, with market research, with usage reports, and therefore we need this. I also need to be able to rebuttal when they say, well, that's not how we should build it. Well, I read this research paper and it said it's a good proposal. While I'm open to listening to what you have to say, I also have grounds. And if you can't stand up for yourself to someone with 15 plus years, someone in a senior principal or director level, you're going to have a hard time, right? You need to be able to not see level and be able to lead even where you might be junior. So I would say leadership is actually like one of the most important things that you can do. Outside of that, just have fun. People like to see people with passion. Like if you haven't found something you're passionate about, invest some time in yourself, go find it. For me, it was building a community, and that's what I talked about, and that seemed to really be what set me apart. Let me pull up a little bit. Aside. I deal with this all the time. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Maria, but feel free to elaborate. So product management is hiring engineers. So am I to understand this question? I'm going to rephrase the question and then I'll answer it if you clarify. Are you saying if a computer engineer, so like hardware engineering, can be a product manager? Is that the question? And let me know. So customer is always right. Okay, now Maria, I know what you're saying. Yes, the customer is always right. Sabina University, I'd sign up. Let's go, let's do it. Is there a way to contact you? You're an awesome person that knows your stuff, and I'd really like to have a coffee chat with you. Yeah, I'm more than happy to do like group coffee chats too. If there's like 10 of you that just want to talk more, we can definitely talk. So I think I put my LinkedIn on this account, but if not, I don't know how long the chat persists, but what I'll do is the last like 2 minutes, I'll post my chat. My name, I'll go back to the first slide. You guys can look it up on LinkedIn. Is Sabina Cartasio. I'm hopefully the only Sabina Cartasio. My sister Samantha, don't add her. So you can go ahead and add me on LinkedIn. I'm semi-active. Like I'll reply to you eventually within a couple weeks. So you can message me there, and I'll probably from there we can have like some kind of Google Hangouts or Teams meeting where we can chat. I also, like a little off topic, but I do hold a lot of women workshops. So if you're like a woman in tech, I hold like financial workshops and things like that with my mentees. Feel free to ping me on LinkedIn and I can add you to those groups. So I'm trying to get a user research internship. For your research role, did you apply with a portfolio? And if so, what kind of projects did you include? So Claudia, this is from Claudia. So I did apply for an internship. I didn't have research experience at the time. What I had was like a million hackathon projects. So I think going at an internship position, they're a lot more forgiving. They're not looking for particular projects. So what I did is I showed a lot of like AI, machine learning, div tool kind of things on my resume. And then I talked to them a lot about research-esque things I had done in classes because I'm an overachiever. But that's kind of what I did. I didn't have to do anything too special. So I would say at a student level, the person who puts the most pressure on you is yourself. So just, market what you have. If you need a resume review, I'm sure ASI is still around. Go take advantage of those tools, or just ping someone. Don't be embarrassed. That's something I noticed a lot with university students is like you guys will work on your resume secretly for like a year before sending it to someone. Even if you think it sucks, just share it so that you get feedback. That's the best thing you can do. And don't take it personally. Take the feedback. It's better coming from a peer than from, the company of your dreams telling you your resume sucks. So, get that feedback. As a PM at Microsoft, do you work with UX researchers or designers at all? Okay, I think I may have skipped the question, but I'm going to answer this one first. Hi, Kathy. So we do have UX designers. We do have a research team. However, we're just such a large project that the UX designers are kind of reserved for big features. So I might work on them with like some of my bigger features, but all the smaller features, I'll go ahead and mock them completely myself. And then when they're all done and I've gone through a couple iterations with my team, we'll go ahead and hold a review with the researchers and they'll go ahead and look at it and the designers. For research, again, that just has to be a really large scale change. So it's not like they don't exist. I just do a lot of that work myself most of the time. Hope that answers. Okay, I think I got a yes to whether or not, maybe it's the wrong question, but someone kind of asked like, who can be a product manager? The truth is anyone, right? Anyone can be a product manager. It depends on the team. So every team has different technical needs. So for something like machine learning, right? You don't necessarily have to have a background in machine learning to be successful, but you do need a technical background. You need to know about system design. You need to know about code, right? If you can read any language, you can learn the other, but you need to be able to be pretty familiar with developing and reading code, debugging code, those kinds of things. That helps if you want to be on a technical team. But there's also non-technical or non-purely technical teams. Like if you do something like advertisement, you might need to learn on the job, but you don't need to have a whole tech background to do, like being advertisement maybe. So it kind of depends. Anyone can be a product manager. I do know actually that Microsoft has hardware program managers. I'm using product and program interchangeably. Someone noted before, it's about the same. There's hardware program managers. I only know one, but if it's only a couple of you that have questions, if you message me on LinkedIn, I might be able to connect you with her. I'm not super familiar with that role. A group coffee chat would be great. Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for whoever posted my LinkedIn. If you guys want to do group coffee, I'll kind of see who replies. So if it's more than like 5 of you guys, then I'll set up a little group chat and then we can do a group coffee. We can get 10 people. Yeah, no problem. I'm here to answer questions. Like I mentioned, if you guys are going through interviews right now, and you kind of need some guidance or whatever, there's lots of FIU alumni that are really, really happy for mentorship. Sign up for Mentor FIU. If you guys are an FIU student, I am one of the industry mentors. So if you become a mentor of the program, you might get me as a mentor, or my boyfriend, who's an engineer at Microsoft. So there's a lot of different industry level mentors, but they kind of open a lot of doors for your growth. Like, not saying you're going to get an offer or anything like that, but you'll grow a lot in getting insight and learning what we went through. So recommend it. Let's see. Get those connections, people. Yes, Michael knows what's up. Get the connections. So, as a woman of color, what has your experience been working in tech, and how did you find your own community? So, being a woman, not even of color, just a woman, because in Miami, like, everyone is like me, like different skin color, sure, but you're all Latinos, so I would say it was not a big deal being Hispanic in Miami. It was a little hard being a woman in university. When I first started, I was probably the only girl in like a lot of my classes until about my junior year, and then it started to be like 2 other girls in my class, and that was great. I thought it was a blast. We became best friends because we're the only 2 girls. And then my senior year just blew up. It was like, girls everywhere. It was great. So I would say it was a little hard at first because initially when it blew up, it's like every girl had to honor our name. So like if you saw, boys ask for help on homework, it was kind of like, yeah, bros helping her bros. But if a girl asked for homework, it started to become kind of like, oh, girls only cheat off the guys or whatever. So there was like, anytime one girl did something, it was like the assumption of all girls. So I grew like a really hard, external shell. And it took a while for me to break that down, but I'm glad I did, because you just have to understand that you can't like generalize, right? You can't stereotype like that. And just hang around people who respect you, people who make make you grow, make you a better person. And then going into Microsoft wasn't a big deal. Honestly, it wasn't too bad. The biggest thing is like, yeah, I don't have any Hispanics on my team. There's like no Hispanics. So there's one guy from Spain. So one of the guys on my team is from Spain, but it is harder for me to relate to him because Spain is so far removed from the Caribbean and Central America, but it's still a little bit of a connection. There is something called Hola, which is HOLA, and it's the Hispanic community at Microsoft. Likewise, they have BAM, which is the Blacks at Microsoft. So we have a bunch of those communities, and they do cafecito, they do like virtual talks, they had like salsa dancing. It's great. If you need a bite of culture, you'll get it from those groups. How long do I plan to work on industry before going into education? I would say like a while, because I want to make sure that I'm also financially secure, so that I can go through periods like right now, like COVID. So I was thinking at least until like my mid-30s. So right now I'm 24. So I think until like my mid-30s, I'd like to stay in industry, make sure that I'm racking up experience. But ask me in a year, I changed my mind with the seasons. So who knows? Stay in touch. So how many mentors in marketing or design departments? Anywhere really. So I can link you with at least one person. There's someone on my team right now that she's fantastic, and she's from a design background, but she is a program manager at Microsoft right now. But she studied UX design. That's like her whole background. From marketing, I don't know too many people that are relatively young in marketing. I know some folks that are pretty professional and deep into their careers who are in marketing. Maybe they'd be okay to taking a mentor, but I'd need to see what your interests are. But for design, I might be able to link you with someone if you guys need more insight. What are my thoughts on graduate school? Yeah, so at the beginning, I did mention that I wanted to go to graduate school. I was doing my research intern. I was going to start full-time and go get my master's. And then I jumped ship and I went to Microsoft. So I am a big advocate of doing what makes sense for you. I'm not going to tell you go get your master's so that you can get a better job, or go get your master's so you can break it into whatever field you want to go to. That's not necessarily true, right? Unless the field you're trying to get into is research, in which case, go get your master's, go get your PhD. But if you're like, I need to get my master's in this so that I can get a better role at Google or whatever. No, don't do it. You know, like don't do it for the wrong reasons. You're gonna rack up student debt, and we can talk about finance another time because this is not the right workshop. But if you have a general curiosity in education, like higher ed, if you have a general curiosity in research, then definitely do it. I think it's great. I think there's a lot to learn, because when you start to look at your graduate degree, like when you're talking about PhD, master's, you start to get hands-on, right? You start to do research projects. It's not just classes, although there are classes, that's an aspect of it. And I think there's a lot to gain from hands-on experience. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so we have about 9-10 more minutes. Any more questions? Also, let me see if I don't know if Damaso, I don't know if I'm saying your name, but right. But I noticed that you've been on the panel for a minute. So I'll add you guys in case there's more questions. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to understand like what you wanna know. Like you and I can sync, or if you are specifically interested in a product management role for like a different company and you want to talk to someone there, like you guys, like I said, just if you have more questions on your personal career growth and getting a mentor, 2 things I'd recommend. If you're an FIU student, join Mentor FIU. Just do it right now. Even if you'd be a mentee, your mentor can ask questions to one of us for you guys. If you're going to another university, make use of the clubs and groups in your university. Or like I said, just go on LinkedIn. Let's say that you really want to work for Microsoft and you really want to be a software engineer. Reach out to the younger ones, like SD 1, 2, or senior. Reach out to one of them. Just be like, hey, I saw your profile. I saw that you're working on software development for Linux, and that's something I'm really passionate about. Do you think we could chat? Or just ask a question on the chat. You know, be like, can you tell me more about it? And kind of see where it goes. That's a really great way to just learn more about a role. Reach out to at least 3, just because some people are not active. Oh, that moved a lot. Okay, so how is the work culture at Microsoft? What is a typical day like, especially now during COVID? So Microsoft is a really big company. Like, not only does it span an entire, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Microsoft's Redmond campus. It's like the largest university campus. Think of it like that. It's huge, but it spans not just Redmond, but the different cities in Washington, all over the world. They're, you know, in London, they're everywhere. So it's really hard to say like, this is the culture, right? One thing that like you'll hear a lot at Microsoft is one Microsoft, and that's something we all try to like aim for, which is it's not you building a product. It's not you against your team member building a project. It's your team as a whole, making sure you guys come together to deliver a product that makes sense for the customer. That's the best way to generalize the culture. But it's really hard, right? There might be some teams who are a little bit more laid back, and maybe it's more of a family group. So they might respect weekends a little bit more, right? And you might have a younger team who like you guys are really, really fast paced and you work whenever you need to. It just depends where you are. I think there was a second part to that question. So typical day like, I'll talk about for me, like just in my role. This depends on whether or not it is conference season. So product managers definitely struggle the most during conference season because we're usually holding somewhere between 3 or 4 different demos and talks to, like I said, hundreds, if not thousands of people in the audience. So we're preparing, we're making sure our scripts are done, or we have to review them with like marketing, sound engineering, all of that. If it's in person, we have to make sure that the demos work and that everyone has the right account. It's like, it's a mission, right? So that's kind of like panic season. Outside of that, it's a lot of customer calls. You can expect at least 3 or 4 meetings a day. One of those meetings being either with the customer or relating to a customer issue or workflow. There's a little bit of a common saying that product managers go to meetings so that software developers don't have to. And it's true. I would stand by that one. So how's the culture during COVID? Yeah, I think that this is a little more dependent on you, right? Like there's some people that personally need in-person interactions to feel included or to ramp up. But I would say that we try, at least at Microsoft, from what I've seen, or this is how I am, my chat is always open. It's, you know, synonymous to leaving my office door open. I try to make sure that if someone's new on the team, I check in on them. right? Because they might not know you, they might be more hesitant to like talk to you. We've had a couple new people on the team. So I try to just do like regular check-ins. I can't speak for everyone, but I would think most of us are pretty open. I've messaged people all over Microsoft, by the way. Sometimes I have a question on a product, even if it's not related to my customer, and I just ping someone on Teams and they answer. Like, people love talking about their work. It's not a, like, you can't talk to people because you don't know them. It's pretty chill. Let's see. Yeah, Bernd is right. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but yeah, it depends on team. Every team is different. So you mentioned that your what must be backed by your why. If you could define your personal why, what is backing it up? I need more context on what you're asking. Sorry about that. What's my personal why? Having worked at Microsoft and Amazon, did you notice the difference in culture? Yeah, I did, right? But you also have to understand that the team I worked at Amazon, so someone looked at my LinkedIn, I see you. So I was a software developer at Amazon, or intern at Amazon, and I worked for a subdivision of Amazon Go. So it's the store where you walk in, grab a product and dip, and get charged and dip. So I worked on it before any of the other stores got released. So we had the one main store in downtown Seattle, the one that's like by the Spheres, if you guys are familiar with Seattle. So that store was open, and then we were in the process of opening up 3 more stores. So I had to do a lot of walking downtown to visit like all the stores. And it was very startup-y. I think there were 200 people on the entire Amazon Go team, and we were all like on 2 floors of like a secret building. It was not declared Amazon. It was like all undercover or whatever. And it was a lot of work. It was like day in, day out, even as an intern. They try to make it cool. Like, there's a lot of awesome events, but it was very much like, we need to develop this and deliver it quickly. And there's very few people to do it. So I can't speak, again, Amazon is huge. It's so big. But particularly the feature I was working on was more startup-y. And now I think I have a little bit more work-life balance on this team, just because it's a tiny bit more developed, still startup-ishy, but we have about 500 to 600 people on the team, which is like more than double Amazon. So let's go up. Can you give some interview tips? So we do have 2 minutes. I don't think I can give interview tips here. What we could do is, if you message me on LinkedIn, I'll go ahead and create like a chat, like a group chat, and we can make that a topic to talk about over coffee. Is it bad that I'm hearing it's like a mission and I'm getting excited? So I still don't fully understand the what's my personal what. So I guess I want my personal what, if I'm hearing it, is like, what do I want to do with my life? Right? And like I said, I want to be an educator. The reason being is I just get so much satisfaction out of helping people succeed. Like, I could be have very little success, but if something I did or some guidance I gave you any happiness or success, I will be over the moon. Like, I get so happy when I see other people succeed and I was able to help. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, so some insight. You may have already covered this, but why PM over suite or any other roles that you had in a job in? So we do have 1 more minute. I don't know if this rolls over, so just ping me if you can still hear me. But I did 3 software engineering internships, and then I did a research internship, and then I went into PM. And over this, one of my mentors at the time told me that you do internships to find what you don't like, not to find what you do like. And I started to, I did a really, really back-end, like database Java kind of experience, and I did a front-end like React Native experience, and then I did NLP and I did AI. And I realized like there were things about all the projects that I liked, but overall I was just never happy. Like, at the end of the internship, yeah, I delivered something, it was cool, I learned, but I'm not satisfied. I didn't feel like I was helping anyone. I didn't feel like I was making a difference in anybody's life with what I was doing. I was making companies more money. Like, you know what I mean? It didn't feel like I was empowering anyone. So I kind of felt a little bit more of that ability as a PM. I felt like I was able to actually see the impact of the products that I was helping guide on customers' workflows and some of the projects they were trying to light up. And that was something I didn't get immediately from software development. Not to say it's not there, but I just didn't get it. Research might have been a cool path. Who knows? I might go back. Ask me again in a couple of years, like I said. So there's not really a reason other than I thought it would be a good fit, and I wanted to try it. Yeah, okay, so I kind of did answer that, but I only applied to one full-time job. So I applied to one full-time job because I knew that I wanted to get my master's and go into research, and that was with Microsoft for the PM role. The reason I did it is because Microsoft was coming to FIU a lot, and I saw that everyone I met from Microsoft, like from software engineer to PM, but especially PM, had an amazing culture. Like they or an air about them, I'll say. They just wanted to like connect with me on LinkedIn. They wanted me to learn more about their products. Like if I reached out saying, hey, you know, how do I handle this situation? Or what do you think about this? Like they became my friends almost. And I thought that was really nice. You know, I like that culture. So I decided to give them a shot. And when I got it, I'm tacky or whatever, but I believe like everything happens for a reason. So I decided like, this is a path I need to try. And if I don't like it, I can just come back, get my master's and do research. Nothing's going to hurt. But I had to try it. And I'm glad I did. I ended up learning so much, and I'm having a great time. I can hear you, and you helped out so much today. You're awesome. You're awesome too. Thank you so much. You clearly know your stuff, and I love that you want to get into education. Keep crushing it. Thank you so much, Kathy. Yeah. So what's a Code Path Tech Fellow? I'm not familiar with that one. If you want to answer. But yeah, it looks like we're a good amount over time. I might have my time off, so I'm 3 hours behind from you guys, but I think the Ladies Storm Hackathon is starting now, or like in an hour. I don't know if I'll be able to make that one, but for the ladies in the room, or some of the allied men, if you guys want to join that, I think it'll be fun, definitely. It's now. Okay, it's now. So stop listening to me and go join that. So yeah, like I said, message me on LinkedIn. I'll try to create a chat, and we can take it from there. Bear with me, like I might take a week or two to reply to you guys, but we'll do something. All right, any other questions, just hit me up on LinkedIn. Thank you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and hop off so that you guys leave.